Hey everybody, First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. We're going to get right to it today. We've got the storm pounding the Carolina coast right now. South Carolina started this morning, really went downhill. It's been a bad morning in the Charleston area. A lot of trees down, power lines, big time storm surge. The storm is starting to make that churn to the northeast, but it's very close to the coast of South Carolina right now. You can see the eye still very well defined there. Pretty impressive to see it still maintaining this strength. It will begin to experience more wind shear over time as the outflow is now stretching off to the north and east. You can actually see the flow behind it starting to come in and pushing it up, but it's so close to the coast here that it's probably going to make a landfall there, and maybe there, because as it moves to the northeast, those parts of the Carolinas jut out into the ocean and they're able to be hit by the storm as it pushes off in that direction. So for that reason, I do think we're going to see a landfall. So a lot going on this morning. One thing that I probably should have played up more here was the tornado threat. There's always a risk of tornadoes with these systems, but this morning, these bands to the east and north have been really prolific tornado producers. In fact, they weren't little tornadoes either. These were like supercell looking tornadoes. So this band right here, and then any of these bands up here coming to shore, the tornado threat is going to be a big factor for the rest of the afternoon. The frictional effects of land, the fact that the storm is moving this direction, but the wind's going this direction, then you throw in friction, it just creates a lot of what we call local helicity. It causes things to spin up ahead and northeast of the storm. So as the storm tracks up the coast, this direction, everything ahead of it and to the right is going to have a tornado threat. There is not a big tornado threat on the backside. It's not unheard of, but that's not the area we watch for. These are all tropical storm reports coming in for either trees down or winds. You can see the forecast this morning had it as a Cat 3, but the next forecast update's coming out here in about any minute now. Has it weakening to a Cat 2, which is essentially a 5-mile-per-hour difference. It doesn't change the impacts at all. We've been getting all caught up in a 6-mile-per-hour difference. It's really not that big a deal. It's going to move northeast. It is picking up speed and eventually could be right about there. I'm just going to show you a different map just to show you that northeast movement. These were the plotted locations, and you can see it has made that churn to the northeast. It was right south of Charleston yesterday, and overnight it's actually made a churn. It's moving about 15 to 20 degrees to the northeast, and this is the track today as it moves up. And again, because the Cape Fear region, Cape Lookout, and the Outer Banks kind of stick out, they're most likely going to be the landfall location. You can see the tornado watch. This one is up until 7 p.m. tonight. The one here near the border is up until 4 p.m. So a couple tornado watches, and we got several tornado warnings currently in effect. Now, as we go through the day, the surge, pay particular attention to your high tides in your location, because the water's really coming into Myrtle Beach now, and then tonight it's really going to come into the Wilmington area, and then tomorrow morning up here in eastern North Carolina. And I'm going to show you real quickly some of these forecasted let me move the map over here. Forecasted water levels. So you can see the water levels around Pawleys Island today with the high tide today should be really, really high. So high tide today around Pawleys will be bad. Myrtle Beach could be bad as well, down to Georgetown. So these areas, Murrells Inlet, we've got to watch. Now, Bald Head Island, either side, Oak Island looks to have the heaviest surge as well as Ocean Isle, but I think a lot of this is going to be Sound side or intercoastal side. And then Wilmington, it'll be interesting to see how this times out with high tide, because Wrightsville Beach very susceptible to a north and southeasterly flow, so it could see some big surge there. Topsail, I could see some overwash in parts of the island. You could see not the whole island, but maybe the lower end, and then parts up here. There's going to be certain areas where it's going to overwash. It won't overwash the whole island, but it'll likely come over some of those low spots. You probably, if you've been to the beach, you see those kind of wash areas where the water's actually meant to go over the island and back into the intercoastal or the marshes behind. Pretty high surge potential here, Sneed's Ferry, Topsail Island. And then you go north, and this is where you start to see, the lower end to Emerald Isle, some surge, some Swansboro could see some decent surge. Indian Beach, not too much. Atlantic Beach, tolerable. But then you get into sections like Havelock and Newport, and areas here in eastern Carteret County where we're likely going to see some of the high surge levels. And I'll just pinpoint some of these right around Cherry Point. Timing of the highest water is going to happen 6 a.m. on Friday. So I'll just pinpoint these. These are pretty high levels, up around almost 10 feet, 6 a.m. So this is the area I'm watching really carefully. This is where we possibly could have a landfall, and I think this area could have the highest surge. So the surge potential is still very high here in eastern North Carolina as it moves to the north and east. So just be ready for the potential that we're going to see some significant surge in these three locations today. Myrtle Beach down to Georgetown, then north of Wilmington, Wrightsville Beach, and then up in the Morehead City area, and then Outer Banks, obviously. I'm not going to leave you guys out. I think you guys realize this is going to be a pretty big event depending on what side of the sound it goes on. If it stays on the sound side, the wraparound, and don't forget about this, as the storm passes you, the flow around the storm pushes water towards the sound side of the island. Initially, the water is going to be coming from the ocean, but you're going to get it from both sides, especially if it crosses right over the lower part of the island. So there's a quick overview. Again, back towards the Charlotte area as we expected. Not even a drop. It is breezy, maybe a max gust of 30 miles per hour. But again, we're waiting for that churn to continue to the northeast. Accelerating, I think, is the next thing. It's made that churn. I say we're waiting because I see it making that churn already. The question is, does it start picking up speed? And I think it will as it takes that turn to the northeast. So please listen to local officials. Be very wary of tornado warnings today. These warnings aren't going to be able to come out quick. Remember, these bands are flying in from the coast. So if you're ahead or north of the storm, and again, I'll go back to this area. If you're in the tornado watch area, I would probably stay indoors today. Stay away from the windows and exterior sections of the house, especially as you see these rain bands come in. So if you see them come in, just assume there could be a tornado in there as they move through. Those tornadoes, they're very powerful today. These aren't short-lived little dinky ones that are weak. They're very strong, and they're lasting, maybe 5-10 minutes as they move in from the coast. Be safe, everybody, and please stay inside until this storm passes.